Hey guys, it's Shikadi again. I'm back with another ruling video. First things first, I just want to correct 3 of the rulings I made in my first video. After reading the comprehensive rules again, I realized I was wrong about the first 2. Ceodore, you select which effect of those 3 at activation, not resolution. So your opponent will know which one and they can respond accordingly. Similarly with Palom, you choose which forward to deal which damage to at activation, and you can't change your mind at resolution, so they can actually buff them out of range, and you won't be able to then switch to a different target with that one. White Tiger, see Nimbus. I was wrong about, I said you could pay for it with Cosmos and Chaos, but you can't. It has to be CB from Ice backups. I had it exactly the wrong way around. It can't be just ICP from any backup. So just thought I'd clear those up. I really apologise about those. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. But the rest of the rulings I can confirm are correct. I made sure about a few of them. One of them is this one, which we were unsure about. I asked on Twitter though to make sure, and yes, this has to be your opponent's forward as we expected. It's just a little bit of inconsistent text. I'll talk a bit about that a bit later. But now I just want to chuck in a few extra rulings that I didn't cover in my first video. This card, Aerith, one of the cool legendaries, the actual green legendary, unlike Zidane, like I said before. While you have this up, your opponent can't choose your forwards. They literally actually can't even attempt to choose your forwards. So that means backups with mandatory enter abilities, such as Heroic and Mustadio, if they have a legal target on your opponent's field, then they have to target their own forward. So if they have any forward up, and you have this backup in play, and they activate Heroic, they're going to have to bounce one of their own forwards. And similarly, if they have a dull forward and activate Mustadio, if you have Aerith up, they're going to have to break their own dull forward. There might be a few others, but those are the 2 main ones I can think of. So just watch out for that when you're playing against this card. Exdeath. This is a ruling that covers quite a few cards actually, but I'm going to talk about it in relation to Lulu H. When a card mentions its own name in its text, if it's just its own name, like it is here, or it's just Exdeath, that actually literally translates to this card. I'm not even sure why they don't write that. It's weird that they use the name instead, but that actually means all characters on the field other than this card. So if Lulu H steals this ability, it will remove the Exdeath and it will not remove the Kamari, because it's for Kamari it reads from his perspective as remove all the other characters except this card. It doesn't mean that it will remove himself and they're not Exdeath because it says Exdeath. And a good example of this is this card, WR Remember. It has both forms in it, so where it says card name WR Remember, that means actually cards with that name. So that is, that reads normally, but the part where it says WR Remember gains 1000 pound brave, that will not buff other WR members because it's not preceded with the card name in italics, which is the new form they use for that. So that's a good example of, shows the difference between the 2 text formats. Yeah. Just thought I'd bring that up because there's been a few questions about Exdeath in relation to that. Enuo, just a quick one here, which is actually very relevant though. If it crashes with a forward, so like equal power, they both break each other in combat, it can remove the forward that it breaks. And this is relevant because it has the same power as Golbez. So if Enuo crashes with Golbez, blocks it, attacks it, whatever, Enuo can remove the Golbez and you can stop them getting that trigger, and that's really useful. It makes this card very good against Golbez, much better than it would be otherwise. And Garnet, I've got a much better picture now. I just want to clarify, even though it's pretty obvious from the card, if you cast summons through like other means other than hard casting them, so like from her own ability for example, or from things like Summoner, you do get the auto ability buff, like you do get the 1000 buff. I just thought I'd clarify that because it's obvious from the card, but it might not be obvious, so to speak. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the word put. Now, online a lot of people have been using the word put, they've been kind of giving it this connotation where if the card says put, it has to be the owner's the player that's putting has to use one of their own cards. Now, these 2 cards, it would seem that way from the way these cards are worded, Madius and Zeromus. They both don't specify a card that that person controls, but you cannot activate a Madius in response to your own attack to force your opponent to put your forward into the grave because they have to one of their own. And in Zeromus, as we checked before, that has to be a forward they control. However, I put it to you that that is not necessarily a special property of the word put. I just believe it is an inconsistent card wording because there are actually 3 examples of cards that do specify the controller even though they say put. And so if put had that special meaning, these cards would not specify the controller. And as you can see, we have more examples of this way than we do of the other way. The first one's Feral Chaos. It says select a carrier you control, put it in the break zone. If put had a special meaning, that it had to be your own, then this would just say when attacks or blocks, put a character into the break zone. Similarly, Dr. Sid, your opponent puts one character from his field into the break zone. If put was special, that would just say opponent puts one character into the break zone. And again, with Fanfrit, which is from the same set, it has exactly the same format as Zeromus. It says select forward, put it in the break zone, but it says select one forward they control. It does specify the controller. So there's not a problem with noticing patterns in card text. However, when it's inconsistent like this, and when there's not a concrete ruling, I would not talk about that as if it is a concrete ruling. So I would avoid giving put that meaning that, oh, if it says put, it means it has to be your own character, because that is not necessarily a absolutely for sure ruling. That is just something that people have inferred from reading card text and decided is probably the case. So later sets hopefully will have some consistency, and maybe it will end up being that way, but for now I think it's best to take it case by case, and if you're talking about certain cards and using justification for certain rulings, it's probably better just to use the official rulings and the concrete rulings rather than creating meaning where there might not necessarily be it. And that might be being a little bit fussy about it, but it can cause problems with rulings when you start bringing in information that's not set in stone. That can create confusion and misunderstandings, and especially if later on it turns out that was not true, then it could cause a lot of problems for people interpreting new cards. Yeah, so just thought I'd talk about that. I mean, you don't have to agree with me with that one, and maybe talk about it in the comments if you want. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. Anyway, thanks for watching though. I just thought I'd clear a few of those things up. Yeah.